everyone. Today we are very, very lucky to have Christine Mitchell with us to share about osteopathy. Many people have this question when they hear about osteopathy. What is it? What is osteopathy? So, Christine is going to share with us about the heart and the soul of osteopathy and help kind of demystify it a bit, even though it is very mystical. So, Christine Mitchell is our speaker. She is an osteopathic physician and has been practicing general osteopathic medicine since 2006. She has lectured and trained students in osteopathic courses and workshops all over the world. And she's a faculty member of the biodynamics program dedicated to education in traditional osteopathic studies. She has provided clinical services for the Osteopathic Children's Clinic of Portland, Maine, is a faculty member of the Bavarian Pediatric School and Clinic for Traditional Osteopathy, and provides general osteopathic services for all age groups. She's currently practicing in Katonah, New York. And this talk is an offering of the Pranada Wellness Center. Pranada Wellness is currently doing educational programs such as this one, as well as hosting an annual week-long retreat every spring at the Temple of Compassion in Burton, Texas. So at these retreats, we have physicians like Christine who are going to be there practicing osteopathy, which is the topic of today's talk. If you're interested in learning more or in registering for our next retreat, I'll be dropping a link in the chat. Our next retreat at the Temple of Compassion is going to be April 11th through 17th, 2026. And I will turn it over to Christine. Christine, thank you so much for being with us. I'm really looking forward to this talk.
Wonderful. Should we do a prayer?
Absolutely.
Would you lead that, Rosa?
Okay, sure. So in honor of our teachers, in honor of Christine and all of our teachers, I'll say the teacher-student prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahahi Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahahi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
To know a bone in its entirety would close both ends of eternity. I love my fellow man because I see God in his face and form. To find health should be the object of the doctor. Anyone can find disease. I thought it would be nice to begin our discussion with the words of the founding father of our profession, Dr. Andrew Taylor Still. I feel that it is important to give you a taste of the roots of osteopathy. And what better way to do this than with the words of the founder himself? I am not ashamed to be a child in the mind of God. Medicine continues to drift further and further away from recognizing the source behind all of health and healing. In its truth, osteopathy is based on this recognition that we are all children in the mind of God. I would like to read a passage from one of Dr. Still's books. Solemnity takes possession of the mind. A smile of love runs over the face. The ebb and tide of the great ocean of reason, whose depths have never been fathomed, swell to your surging brain. You eat and drink, and as you stand in silent amazement, suns appear where you never saw even a star, brilliant with the rays of God's wisdom, as displayed in man and the laws of life, eternal in days, and as true as the mind of God Himself. Can you imagine in today's world of medicine, a doctor saying or writing such things? In this last quote, Dr. Still is describing the depth of an osteopathic treatment, the potential of healing in patients can be witnessed at their core through silence, through stillness, and light, through light, sound, and vibration. Life is that calm force sent forth by deity to vivify all nature. Osteopathy, to me, is a very sacred science. It is sacred because it is a healing power through all nature. Dr. Still studied the natural world in man and man in the natural world. He only trusted healing through the natural laws of life, nothing else. Only through nature's drugstore provided to man. He really believed that we are given exactly what we need to heal, and that our job as physicians is to use our hands to open up the pathways for patients to access their own indwelling therapeutic forces and chemistry to heal themselves. Osteopathy is natural medicine at its roots. Clean air, water, food, shelter, rest, movement, being in and part of the natural world, ultimately in service. Human life is eternal. We have no proof otherwise. And I just have one more passage that I want to read through from the autobiography of A.T. Still. And there's a reason for this, but through all the darksome night, I lay enchained by slumber's thrall. But with the first faint flushing of the dewy morn, I arose and wandered forth. All nature seemed to wait in hushed expectancy. With the iron hand of will, I barred the gate of memory, shut out the past with all its old ideas. My soul took on receptive attitude. My ear was tuned to nature's rhythmic harmony. Afar, o'er billows of the briny deep, I saw faint shafts of light arise, enriching with rosy tint the pallor of the dawn. I saw the red disk of the sun peep forth, and spring, full orbed and fiery, from night's embrace, and kiss the world to waking beauty. My spirit was overwhelmed with the unmeasurable magnitude of the divine plan on which the universe is constructed. And if I had time, I would read the chapter, because what Dr. Still describes is that he finds a miniature universe in man. He describes the planets and the stars within man. He described our meditation practice in this passage, that we bar the gate of memory, that we wait for the moment for communication from the divine, so we know how to go forward in the next moment. Osteopathy was born through this. This is Dr. Andrew Taylor Still. He was born in 1828 and left his body in 1917. He was a pioneer and moved westward into a new frontier, both in his family and personal life and in the practice of medicine. He lived through unbearable tragedies in his lifetime, with the loss of his children from diseases unable to be helped by medicine of its day. He witnessed the brutalities of a war as a hospital steward and a scout surgeon during the Civil War. He was an abolitionist. He saw the injustices and brutalities involved in slavery. And he witnessed the brutalities and the genocide of his people, the native peoples of America. In spite of this, as we heard in this last passage, through this incredible journey in his life, he was gifted with this realization of the unmeasurable magnitude of the divine plan on which the universe is constructed. And most certainly, the unmeasurable magnitude of the divine plan of which every man, woman, and child, every living and non-living thing is constructed. He spent his life studying this divine plan and formulated an advanced practice of medicine that he called osteopathy. Dr. Still's kind, humorous, yet sometimes eccentric words and mannerisms remind us that osteopathy is nothing but love, and that we are love. He said, love is the greatest force in the universe. And he said, I love to love and be loved, don't you? He recognized that life, as it manifests through our anatomy and physiology, is creating our function and form every moment. These natural laws and forces of life are things that can be observed, studied, and utilized, not only with our minds of reasoning, but through all of our senses, most especially our hands. And would you believe we can be given more information and more knowledge through our hands than our brains and our little minds. This is something to ponder. So, osteopathy is a philosophy. And when studied deeply, osteopathy parallels most spiritual philosophies. William Garner Sutherland was born in 1873 and passed in 1954. He was a student of Dr. Still. He is the founder of osteopathy in the cranial field. He spent his entire adult life exploring the therapeutic motions related to the cranium and the cranial bones, the nervous system, and the membranes of the cranium that we call the dura or the meninges. The dura and the meninges are attached and move the 22 bones of the head and face, as well as the sacrum, because the sacrum has a dural attachment to the cranium. But in my opinion, more importantly, he discovered a very special type of respiration. And he called this discovery the primary respiratory mechanism. He called the breathing primary respiration. This breathing occurs at a different rate than thoracic respiration. And all of the fluids, tissues, and cells of the body respond to this primary respiration. In fact, it is one of the natural laws that Dr. Still spoke about. Dr. Sutherland also realized after 35 years or more of his study and practice that beyond primary respiration, there is another type of breathing that he recognized as the breath of life, as described in the Bible. All of his discoveries resulted in the ability to treat patients in a more holistic way with results as great as the magnitude of the heavens, as Dr. Still described. Dr. Sutherland believed that the power within the patient is more important than applying a blind force from without. And I just want to share that I am sure everyone has heard of craniosacral therapy, and this type of treatment can be directly related to Dr. Sutherland's work. So there are other practitioners besides DOs or osteopaths that practice craniosacral work. Dr. Sutherland called it osteopathy in the cranial field, though the term craniosacral comes from his work. That is his term. So what did he say? All life is manifested as motion. Without motion, there can only be death. That motion is essential to function. And that motion must be intelligent and purposeful for the organism to successfully compete with its environment. That motion must be guided and directed by a supreme being. that there must be a channeling of the universal intelligence down to the individual cell or organism. Otherwise, all would be chaos. He asks, what is the supreme intelligence? How does the channeling take place? No one knows for sure. But the fact remains that the existence of such is an irrefutable fact, and it is emphasized by the world's greatest scientists. He says fingers capable of feeling, thinking, seeing, requiring brain cells in their tips, locating factors beneath as well as throughout the body tissues. A finger feel, a finger thought, and the finger sight are the only way to read the diagnostics. And he says, osteopathy is governed by and through a cultivated sense of touch. And it can't be learned by observation. And he says again, there must be a finger feel, a finger thought, and a finger sight in order to note how the lesion moves, when it moved, and the change occurring after. So osteopathy is an art. Through Dr. Sutherland's teachings, we can use our hands to sense and perceive so we can dance with the emotions of life. So the art is our hands intelligently dance with the natural laws and motion of life. And certainly osteopathy is a science. We find that science is proving the discoveries of osteopathy by both Dr. Still and Dr. Sutherland today. There are many concepts and discoveries written about in our old osteopathic literatures that are just now being shown in laboratories and research. Their discoveries came from their hands. So this is Dr. James Jealous. He was born in 1943 and he passed in 2021. And Dr. Jealous was my primary osteopathic teacher, as well as Dr. Adams and Dr. Wong and Ed Schroeder's teacher. And you will meet those doctors at the Pranada retreat and may be treated by them. And Dr. Jealous is the founder of another subspecialty in osteopathy known as osteopathy in the biodynamic model, or the biodynamics of osteopathy. The word biodynamic is a term borrowed from a master embryologist, Dr. Erich Blechschmidt of Germany. Dr. Jealous brought osteopathy to another level with his in-depth study of embryology and osteopathy, and he was able to show that the same embryologic forces, and this is not the genetics or the genetic field, it's not the genes, but the embryologic forces that are called biodynamic forces, the forces that create the function and form of an embryo, are the same forces behind our growth and development and healing throughout our lifetime. So they never go away. These are the life forces that Dr. Still was talking about. These are natural laws of life. Life is a delicate balance among the magical forces of creation, sustaining, and destruction that occurs at each moment, dying and becoming. And that all of this can be perceived with our hands. Dr. Jealous says we are designed to heal each other. What Dr. Jealous did for me and thus has done for my patients is to teach me and teach all of the community that we are fully human and fully divine. Dr. Jealous saw our health in spite of ourselves. And he taught us to do the same for our patients. And it doesn't matter whether we are saints or criminals. The love from the divine is the same. He taught us that it is our inability to respond to this love that is given continuously that causes us to suffer, that actually causes dysfunction and disease. So, like Dr. Still, he saw God in our face and our form, and how blessed we are to have been his students. Dr. Jealous, Dr. Sutherland, Dr. Still loved our humanity and trusted in the divine to guide and heal us and to heal each other. The cause of an illness is not the illness itself, but how one became susceptible. The health creates the lesion to protect the whole in an act of wisdom. Can you imagine that our issues, whether it's in the emotional, psychological, physical, or spiritual realms, are things that need to release, are held in place by the health, our lesions, our inadequacies, our imperfections are held in place by the health until we are ready to receive and the time and tempo for it to be released. The whole thing, the divine plan and master plan, has been designed through the health by the Creator. When we hate lesions in ourselves, we miss the real story of love. Does hating a lesion help healing? Self-pity is a poison. Feeling healthy or ill is the same fulcrum. Neutrality can improve both levels of function. How often do you consult with your patients on this? Finally, osteopathy is an opportunity to serve the suffering persons in this world through the very humbling experience of coming to know the magnitude of the heavens, as Dr. Still described. As one grows in this work, everything will slowly change until the truth awakens the desire to serve without any reward. So, what is osteopathy? It is an art, a science, a philosophy. It's the art of using one's hands to engage a therapeutic process governed by the natural laws of life and health of a patient. So I thought I would review some of our language because some of you will be getting treated at the retreat, and you may hear some of this language, and it may help you to understand a little bit more of what we're doing when we treat you osteopathically. The health. So we acknowledge the health of each of our patients before we start any treatment. A higher mind is indwelling in the health. At the moment of conception, the health is imparted to us from the divine. It is the divine blueprint from which we are created. It is not the genes. It is the embryonic matrix. It is the blueprint of life. Some traditions call it the imago Dei, the image of God. The health emerges before any form and function of the embryo. The health is the perfection given to anything alive and persists throughout our lifetime and allows us to be alive. If we do not have our health, we will not be alive. And this is something perceivable with our hands. But even at times when we cannot manage to perceive it, we still acknowledge it before every treatment. We acknowledge the perfection of this God-given life and keep a picture of normal as we treat. Wholeness. Instead of focusing on fragmented parts, we listen to wholeness of our patients. Our patients are single, moving units of function. We are not parts. We are not organ systems. Even if a part is in need, we see it in relation to its wholeness. Our emotional, psychological, physical, spiritual wholeness of life in relationship to itself and everything else that exists. Everything is working together to culminate as one movement in one moment. So neutral. So neutral is a state of being. Both the practitioner and the patient have to be in some level of neutrality to both give and receive a treatment. We simply wait until this happens by listening for the wholeness and acknowledging the health. It is a lifelong practice to be neutral in life. We actually try to teach our patients to accomplish this every day of their lives. And Kriya Yoga is certainly an avenue to create neutrality, peace, and love in our lives. The deeper the neutral that our patients can attain, the greater the therapeutic response. It is also through the neutral of the patient that we can communicate with the natural laws, the indwelling forces, the embryologic laws, and be able to sense and perceive inside this world with our hands. So we have an outer and inner physical world. The outer physical world is what we experience through our senses. The inner physical world is the world of the unseen. It is the invisible world, but it can be perceived through our hands and through our own physical, inner physical aspects. We have the gross and subtle physical. The gross body is what we see. It does not last. It dissolves when we die. The subtle physical is an aspect of this inner physical world, and it is more true, and aspects of it last forever. Dr. Still told us, man is eternal. We are eternal. We have biomechanical principles and biodynamic principles. Biomechanical osteopathic treatments are working in the gross outer physical world, and they are very helpful. We work with the gross motions of the body. However, those treatments do not last forever. Those treatments do not last forever. A biodynamic osteopathic treatment, if purely guided by the health, is a treatment that can potentially last forever. So another term that we use and concept that we work with is the fluid body. So the fluid body is invisible. It is experienced in the realm of the subtle physical body. The fluid in the term fluid body is not fluid like water, but it is protoplasmic. It moves as one whole function. It functions as a single drop. It breathes. The bodily fluids, like blood and lymph and cerebral spinal fluid, they are actually parts of the whole protoplasmic fluid body. The tissues are part of this fluid body, and the bioelectric, biomagnetic fields or energies are part of this fluid body. So when we are working with this phenomena, it is essential for an osteopathic treatment, most especially when we are doing biodynamic and cranial treatments. The fluid body can feel like perfect homogeneous protoplasmic fluid that breathes with pauses and has still points, and it carries the light, sound, and vibration. But when the fluid body is lesioned, it can feel distorted with loss of power and loss of response to breathing. And when this fluid body and the subtle physical is lesioned, it will lead to disease. Breath. Breathing is life. We are breathed into existence. We are sustained through the breath. And we are breathed out of existence. In osteopathy, we work first with a patient's thoracic respiration and diaphragm to help maintain the physiologic processes through oxygenation and chemical reactions, all known as metabolism. We like to call thoracic respiration metabolic fire. But we also have another, more subtle form of breathing known as primary respiration. This is the breathing of the subtle physical world. This is the breathing of the fluid body. This is what Dr. Sutherland discovered in the cranial mechanism. And just like thoracic respiration, the rate of breathing can be variable depending on the health or state of a patient. So we use the breath diagnostically just through its rate to understand what might be happening with the patient. Finally, we acknowledge and experience as a therapeutic process the breath of life that passes through everything undiminished, that does not have a rate. It can manifest as a creative force, a sustaining force, and a destructive force. And the source of the breath of life is the mystery. So, osteopathy. It is a unique, holistic practice of medicine where the patient is seen first through the eyes of health and wholeness. Osteopaths use their hands to diagnose and treat patients, to assist the inherent healing forces of the body to restore normal function and form. We trust in the self-healing, self-regulating, self-correcting abilities of our patients. And our job as physicians is to assist and facilitate these self-healing capabilities. We do not believe we are healers. We trust that our patient, with their connection to the divine, is what heals. So to end, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the, some information about osteopathy in medicine, as medicine in the world that we live in today. And it's always surprising to us that there are still so many people who have never heard of osteopathic medicine. And to clarify, believe it or not, there have always, not always been, but since osteopathy in its incipiency, we have two full scope types of physicians in the United States. You can go to an osteopathic medical school and be granted a DO degree, Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine, or Doctor of Osteopathy. Or you can go to an allopathic medical school and be granted a degree as an MD. The prerequisites and the training are similar. In fact, once we reach residency training, we actually train together with MDs. This is relatively new, but we no longer have osteopathic hospitals. We can become specialists in any field, just like MDs. So there are osteopathic surgeons and osteopathic radiologists and osteopathic psychiatrists and osteopaths as family medicine docs. However, as I hope you have come to believe, our philosophy is really different. Also, DOs are quite unique in that we are trained. Anyone who goes to an osteopathic medical school is trained to use their hands to diagnose and treat disease. Our roots are really, we are a health-based model, which is quite different from the allopathic disease-based model of medicine. There are over 200,000 DOs in the United States. And sadly, to those of us who carry on the tradition, many DOs do not use their hands. So it may be difficult to distinguish an MD and a DO in a clinical setting. But I believe that even if they're not using their hands, there is something different in a DO just because of Dr. Still and the roots in the philosophy that is taught to us from day one in our osteopathic training. We are a health-based model of practice. So osteopathy is practiced throughout the world, in most regions of the world. And there is a difference between United States trained osteopaths and the osteopaths in the rest, in other countries. And the osteopaths in other countries are not trained as physicians. So they do not have that same training in medicine. However, they are incredibly gifted with their hands because all of their training is hands-on training. So you may come across osteopaths from other countries, but they are not doctors of osteopathic medicine. So, and that's all I have to say this morning, but I wanted to open up for questions. If there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Christine. I've been taking a ton of notes. And if anybody has questions, please, you can raise a virtual hand and we can find a way to, if you need to ask them directly, you can also put them in the chat. So this is a great opportunity while you have Christine's ear to ask any burning questions that you might have. And Christine, I will keep my eyes on the chat and on the room for that. And if nobody gets a question to you before I do, I have some. Yeah, I'm so interested in this idea of the hands, of using like the fingertips to perceive. And you know, I don't know too much about ancient medicine, but I know people have been using their hands forever when it
Yeah.
comes to healing. So I'm curious, like, what the differences are maybe between osteopathic manipulations using the hands and, more and other forms of hand medicine, and if there is much of a difference or
Well, I mean, it's an excellent question. I think with any form um, or model that we practice, uh, there's a directionality and possibly different ideas and different intentions of what we are trying to perceive and how we actually name things. But ultimately, I think probably all hands-on practices are trying to listen to processes that, motion within the body. Some hands-on, and probably most hands-on practices may still be in more of the gross physical, like physical therapy, for instance, or even massage. But that doesn't mean that through their individual practice that, with their hands on so many hundreds and thousands of bodies, that it doesn't, that these laws and mechanisms do not start talking to them, that they're recognizing that something is going on deeper and more indwelling. Um, I gave you the roots and kind of the direction and how things came to Dr. Still. I mean, we know he wasn't trained in any other type of hands-on medicine. Um, but he had many influences. I mean, he lived among the native people, the Shawnee Nation. Um, his father was a Methodist circuit preacher, and that whole New Thought um, movement. Certainly there was probably some hands-on in that approach. So I think it just comes from. I think the differences are really um, where is the information coming from, what direction, like what model. Um, and so I hope that answers your question.
yes, that is so helpful. And we do have a few questions maybe coming in from the chat. And one is asking about if you do go to an osteopath, to a DO, can they also give allopathic medicines, or do they?
Absolutely. So we're again full scoped physicians. So we have the ability to prescribe all types of medications and to do all kinds of procedures. Um, that's the difference again between, osteopaths in other parts of the world and the United States. Dr. Still was an MD. He actually was a physician. Um, Training back in that time was very different than medical training after the turn of the 20th century. But he was brilliant. He knew anatomy probably better than anyone to this day, anatomy and physiology. He wanted us to shy away from medications because of his experience with the medications at that time period. In fact, most of the medications were caustic and sometimes deadly. So he felt that, as I said in the lecture, that the drugstore is in each person and that we are to tap into that drugstore to get the body's own natural flow of the chemistry that it needs to help heal. Um, Now, this is all before antibiotics. I mean, this is all before, some of the good medications that have come about. But I would bet he would not be too interested in really how much we are medicating our patients today. And that it seems like the direction of medicine is only through medications and not any other processes to help healing. That's my opinion. So yes, we are full scope physicians. If we are gynecologists, you would be getting the full scope of a gynecology practice. If we are obstetricians, we would be giving you the full scope of obstetrics, psychiatry, I mean, you name it. So we do have that training.
Beautiful. I love what you said about the medicine being within. Dr. Dr. Ladd, my Ayurvedic teacher, often talks about the inner pharmacy and how our job is to unlock the inner pharmacy.
Right.
Mhm. Our next question is asking, you mentioned during your talk about the patient and practitioner being neutral and it being also a way of living. Can you please share some methods of how we can work on that on our own?
Oh, well, spending time every day, quiet time with the universe. And spending more time in a thoughtless state where, when our mind is racing, if there's a way to slowly help bring those thoughts to less numbers, certainly breathing activities and exercises can help bring neutrality to us. Learning to respond to the happenings of life as opposed to reacting to them. I mean, that's a big difference. Um, so it's first of all waking up to when we're not neutral, that when, our emotions really take over, um, when we're reacting to the news. There are ways that we can watch the events of life in a place where we're observing without judging, we're observing without reacting. And we try to see health and light in every situation. So, and there are certainly prescribed exercises to do, but it's really, that is the general idea of trying to bring neutrality to us. It's really incredibly important quality to have as a physician because you can see the extremes of everything. If you're in the ER and you see a gunshot wound, if you get, taken into the tragedy and the blood, I mean, you cannot function. So you have to stay neutral.
Thank you so much. Our next question is asking about if they can also feel the health of animals and plants.
Of course. Yes, of course. I mean, we're licensed physicians, so we can't, especially in the United States. I think in other parts of the world, you can provide osteopathy to animals, but in the United States, I mean, we are licensed physicians, so we are not licensed to treat animals or plants. But life force is life force, and the many manifestations of life force are the many manifestations of life force, and it all can be perceived with our hands. And it really does give us a special kind of information. It almost provides us with an image that is quite different than in the gross physical world, in the outer physical world. It's a different perception that we are given through our hands.
Um, and they're about, I hope that you can hear me. I think my internet's a little unstable.
Okay,
But
yes.
both MDs and DOs train and study in the same environment. And how are they different in their practices and maybe how they practice and how they prescribe?
So again, it might be hard in a clinical setting to see, especially in the world of medicine today, to tell the difference between a DO and an MD. Because we are now, as physicians, controlled by insurance, controlled by the people that we work with, the timing of appointments. It really takes a lot of effort to be in a hospital clinic, for instance, and still be an osteopath where you're putting your hands on your patients. It requires a lot of effort. It can be done, but it's exhausting if you're given a lots of patients. Um, so, but where you might notice a difference is again in the interaction, the an understanding, um, an all-encompassing exam where we're really looking at all aspects of our patients as as human beings. So not just, the physical, but that emotional, psychological, spiritual portion of that helps us to heal. But that may not be true of all DOs, but we are given that in our training. So I feel like there's a more chance of that to manifest through that particular practitioner. MDs are, wonderful, wonderful, brilliant people, and I'm sure they have, many MDs have that, can have that approach as well, because now mind-body medicine is in the forefront, but that wasn't always the case. But it is a disease-based model. So you look at what is wrong and you actually try to treat the disease, whereas we try to promote health. And it just is coming from a different approach and a different philosophy, is that we really are trained to see what is, someone comes in with a laundry list of complaints and you find a doorway that opens them up to the place where they can heal from, by asking them certain questions in their history or making them smile or, trying to take their attention off all of the negative aspects of life.
Christine, thank you again so much for being with us, for sharing everything that you've shared, and yeah, for giving us this time with you today. It's been really precious.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. Isn't it a beautiful community? And I'm so happy people
Truly.
are interested in osteopathy.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much. Anyone who's interested in learning more from Christine or even being on her table, she will be at the Pranada retreat this coming April at the Temple of Compassion. It's a great opportunity to get more time with her and with a whole team of amazing osteopaths. Cannot recommend receiving one of these treatments enough. It really can be a life-changing promoting experience. I will end with a little prayer. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudakshate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.